from Realm, Australia, and I'm joined here with Barney McGrath and Kylie Davies. Welcome to this webinar series around property management.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.
Now, if you'd like to, just for our team listening to this and all the property management groups out there, give a quick introduction to who you are and where you're from.
Ladies first.
Thanks, Barney. Thanks, Patrick. Kylie Davis from Real Content and Home Prezzo, and I commentate regularly on the prop tech space.
Beautiful.
That's me next. Hi, I'm Barney. I work with principals. I do quite a lot of performance coaching on businesses, which obviously brings in a lot of the property management as their major assets.
Fantastic. And I'm Patrick Hill, CEO of Realm Australia, the artificial intelligence for property management and the news platform, Realm Industry. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about property management and the current state of property management. There's a lot of things going on, both in how we value a property management rent roll, but also in terms of the way in which businesses are structuring now. There's a lot of pressures in pushing down to this race to the bottom, which I think in some ways is true, in other ways it's not. Barney, what are you seeing out there with your clients within property management and their offices that are running rent rolls?
Okay. Look, there's a number of factors impacting them simultaneously. There's a lot of pressure on fees. So traditional 7% is hard to get, seeing it starting to drop down into the low fives and lower in a number of markets, probably most impacted in Sydney more so than Melbourne, but Melbourne's certainly under pressure. Same time, you've got a lot of increasing costs, particularly in the labour cost and the competition for talent. Simultaneously, as you just touched on, there's a lot of pressure on asset valuation and the move towards valuing rent rolls on the basis of EBIT rather than multiples of revenue. Fourthly, there's been this sort of shiny object called offshoring, which has distracted a lot of people, put a lot of resources offshore, done little to reduce costs in a lot of places. Simultaneously, and as a result of that, in a lot of instances, there's been a desegregation of tasks and a belief that property managers of old who wore 20 different hats are now seeing their roles change to customer service managers, and leasing, inspections, maintenance, and many other things are being taken off their plate. And I think the one that you're probably most aware of, Patrick, in your space, and certainly Kylie in the prop tech space, is the inundation of technology and the rapid change of technology. And as mere mortals, business owners today are absolutely flummoxed. They're terrified of jumping into the wrong technology. There's many competing claims, and I think they're almost frozen by indecision at this point. They know they need to go there, but, terrified of AI, terrified of the impact on their business. It wasn't that long ago that we had to convince principals that having a server under the desk or in the safe was the only safe way to protect their assets. It wasn't that long ago you couldn't even get them to use web-based technologies or cloud-based, let alone AI and many other things. So there's a lot of stuff coming at them simultaneously.
Kylie, do you feel like that this is a common trend in international markets? So in the States and UK and those kind of places that you've looked at, do you think that some of these are common trends as well around the world?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things going on. And I think if you look at the average age of principals in our real estate agencies around Australia, but also in the US, we're kind of, the majority are over 40, 45, into their 50s, and in the US in their 60s. And so when you think about the psychology of that, this is a generation of largely men who have seen a lot of change around technology. And where it's been traditionally, a server, like Barney was saying, that you put under your desk, and that the promise of technology hasn't always lived up to what we were told it was going to do. So the technology of the past has been very expensive, difficult to install, took a lot of time, took a lot of training, and for every job that it took off your plate, it's given us 100 more things to do and kept us even busier. But I think we're really on where the sort of step change has to now happen, or is happening, that is kind of generational, and that we need to get our brains around, is that the technology is genuinely getting easier. Now, it feels harder before it gets easier, but the rise of cloud-based tech, the fact that it's in your pocket as well as on your desktop and in your car and everywhere that we go, means that we now do have a computer with us kind of 24/7, and the rise of voice and big data and automation is starting to take stuff off our plate if we're brave enough to let it go, and if we feel like we've got the processes and structures in place to. So what I see coming, regardless of what country you're in, is that technology is now becoming a real human kind of issue, and that the human traits that we need to be really adopting are leadership and vision for what we want to deliver as a service, and then making the technology fit or do that, rather than trying to adopt the technology and then work out how the service plays out.
I think you're right in some ways that there is an evolution going on, and I think there is a step change that now needs to happen. And I think a lot of people are looking for that change. But one of the big things that Barney mentioned as well is this paralysis through over-analysis. There are a lot of competing claims. There are a lot of firms out there who have said, look, we can do all these things, but in reality, it was vaporware, or it wasn't quite ready, or it wasn't mature enough. And so they're once bitten, twice shy. And I think that, if you look at the numbers, I think that you look at Property Me as a cloud-based system for property management, they've got about 2,000 offices under management or thereabouts. You've got still over 3,000 sitting on Rockend Rest Professional, which is a server-based platform. And a lot of those are saying, well, I'm at the end of my retiring years. I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to disrupt my business because it's scary and this is my asset. And you've got other people sitting there going, I want to take that step, but really, how do I make the decision, and what should be driving that decision? Is that, some of those things you mentioned, Barney, in the space of property management. And the other thing as well is, if they don't take that step, you've got this question of strategy and execution and reducing costs that can come with good technology execution. But if you do it really poorly, they have to roll it back, and it's a massive distraction. It can hurt their business. There's some of the questions you're seeing from your principals grappling with this issue, aren't you, Barney?
Yeah, and I should point out I'm a 60-year-old male, so I'm not sure I should be on this call.
Sorry, mate.
But yeah, no, they're very real problems. And I think you're sort of right on some stuff, Pat. And I'm not taking a dig at anybody, but prop tech in the PM space has been traditionally very slow to move, probably because their clients have been slow to move. I had a conversation with the supplier back in 2002, 2003, no names, but we had a rent roll time of about 3,700 properties, and I needed various things done. And they basically looked me in the eye and said, what do you want, Barney? You're paying us $350 a month. What the hell do you want from us? And so there's been a lot less pressure on prop tech in that PM space, I think, for a long time. The other thing I would say is I'm not sure that the property management technology providers are doing themselves any favours. They're kind of not explaining what they do. They're not bringing it down to a level that an owner can understand in a lot of instances. And I don't know how to break that sort of continuum, but it's certainly what has to happen. And Kylie, you'd see this. The decision maker is usually the principal, and the people that understand it are their PM managers and operational level middle management team. And often they're tasked with the job of selecting and choosing, but often they're not heard.
Yeah, we can have a great discussion around the gender politics of property management, if you like, Barney.
Oh, what, you're done with age? Now you'd like to move on to gender?
We could be here a while, so we might let that go through the keeper. But I think moving right along, one of the big issues that I see is that there's a lot of confusion around what can be offered and what can be done. And there's a couple of points I'd like to make. No one software platform can do everything and do it really well. And so it becomes a question of what's really important to you and what's going to enable my business. Now, there's this concept that I run through with any of our clients that are looking to move to cloud-based systems. And the question is, do you want technology defining what your differentiator is and how you run your business? Or do you want to define your business model and how you go to market and how you differentiate, and then have technology enable that strategy around the edges? And you can't do the latter if you don't have an open API driven system. So an API, for those who don't know, is basically a system that enables other systems to talk to your core data effectively. And there's really only a few in the marketplace now that do it. So Property Me was the first to release it in the property management space. And then you had Rockend in Property Tree that are releasing fairly shortly. And now there's Vault RE, who are going to be a very serious contender and was made by the guys who made My Desktop in the sales space. And their platform's API first, and it's going to bring together both sales and property management under one platform, and it's going to be one fee, so it'll be a lot cheaper as well. So they've got an interesting proposition, but they're very new to the market. And so for those who are transitioning out of Rockend Rest Professional, they can flip straight into Property Tree and access that system and then turn on their API once it hits the market. You've got Property Me, and then you've got this new entrant here. And then you've got all these other platforms that are coming in that are app-driven and interface-driven across the user side that aren't API, but they're making these claims as well, which creates confusion as well. And one of my advices that I've always given around technology is, and this is the same as what it was 20 years ago, when Salesforce came out and said, we're going to have an open API and multiple systems can integrate with our CRM. We're having the same conversation today in property management that they had 20 years ago and really redefined what CRM is and how it executed. So these are some of the things that need to be demystified for principals who are making the decision, and then the people who are driving on the front end, that, as Barney says, the people who know property management, who are executing it, some of them need to really take on the mantle of change. And then you've got that question of effective change management across technology, which is a hard thing as well, because property managers and principals are not necessarily technologists who can implement change across technology in their organization. How do we as an industry start to transition and get across these issues so that they can start enabling their businesses with smarter execution of technology?
Got any ideas, Carl?
Yeah, I'll take that if you like. I think what we need to start, I think a few things. So property management is very new, where and it is going to take a little bit of time for us all to get comfortable with it. I think most principals are terrified. You say the word API to them and their eyes glaze over and they, just want to run for the nearest listing because they know how to do that. And that's fair enough. So but what I think is around the real coming of age of real estate, in Australia especially, but probably globally, is this idea that, look, as a sales agent who was great at selling and then taking the career path of becoming a principal, that's perfectly legitimate and a lot of people have done it, but it actually didn't qualify you to be an amazing principal and to lead a business. And so part of the growing up of being a really good principal and running an amazing business is to embrace the skills that you need as a principal and as a leader. And some of those are about recognizing where your strengths are, understanding even more importantly what your weaknesses are, and having really good processes and people around you to both compensate and step it up where you need to step back. And so if you know so the first thing that we need to do as a business is, while it's great to be able to understand what an API does and how it works inside your business, if you don't, it is even more important to have someone in your business who does, that you trust, and that you have a great system and structure in your business that either gives them the decision rights in that space and that you understand it and what you're asking them to do. Think of it like buying a car. Like, you might know why you want to you might know that you're in the market for a BMW, or you might be in the market for a Toyota Camry. It doesn't matter. You kind of know the sort of features and the things that you're looking for. What goes on under the bonnet, you've got a mechanic for that. So make sure you've got someone in your business who is your trusted mechanic that can advise you as to what's going under the bonnet, and that you can feel confident with your decision, whether it's Camry or BM.
Kylie, it's funny you took that analogy, because I was sitting here thinking, for most principals, they just want to drive a car that goes faster, handles better. And I question, and Patrick, I've said this to you a number of times about some of your products. The tech industry tends to speak tech to these people.
Mm.
It's like a child. I've told you 1,000 times. You're not listening. At some point, you've got to change your language or change the communication. And I question whether the prop tech side of our business needs to have a look at the benefit-driven conversation for principals, help them understand what the upside of this change is, and really help them through it. But I take your point, Kylie, that part of leadership is delegation. Part of leadership is stepping out of the way. But until they understand the benefits to the business, they're not going to do it.
Oh, look, I'm not saying that this is 100% a principal thing either, Barney. I mean, I think while principals need to embrace more broader leadership skills to help them manage not just the engagement around technology, but all different parts of their business, I think there's absolutely fundamentally and very importantly, the role of technologists in the space to start to grow up, and become a little bit more mature about their products. The idea of just being some geek in a garage and being able to make $1 million in real estate by launching, any old beta thing is no longer appropriate. You need to get your marketing right. You need to not talk about, features. You need to be able to talk about benefits. You need to have really on-point training. You need to have great customer service skills, or have it all set up around all of that. So I think if we can sort of see it as a sort of a balancing out, the principals need to raise their game a little bit in either their tech literacy or the people around them that are advising them on tech literacy, and the geeks need to bring it down a bit and start to speak normal English that people will understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Look, Barney, I know that with a number of your premier boutique clients, they're specialising and growing to the point where they can specialise their roles around social media management and technology management. And they've actually implemented staff who do those things as their primary role. Is this a common trend for growing, boutique firms?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that separation of roles is necessarily something that only boutiques can do, because by definition, boutiques are traditionally small. So where you are seeing it is in larger independents and larger franchise businesses. The boutique are struggling with change just because of volume transactions and the revenue that's available to employ individuals. I do think those that have large rent rolls and large sales businesses are starting to have dedicated technology people within their business. But it generally is larger businesses, perhaps, not boutiques.
Yeah, and from a technologist point of view, I think Barney's totally right that, we do, and yourself, Kylie, we as technologists need to get better at business cases and user cases, and what does it mean for your business and how can it help your business? So now we talk about, save 2.3 headcount off a 500 strong rent roll, they can understand that. If you can save 2.3 on a headcount, that translates to real money in your pocket. If we can help you grow your revenue by 25% over the next 12 months, which adds to the value of business at a multiple of what, they can understand that because they know what their rent roll is and what it's worth, and 25% is worth something. So when we talk about our AI benefits, which is our flagship product now, that's what we talk about because, people like Barney have come around and said, look, Patrick, you can't talk these technical things. What's an API and what does it mean? No, it doesn't work, right?
Is that the Australian Property Institute? It is, isn't it? It is, actually. It is. It is a TLA for the API.
Right. So, and what is AI? Like, I can't even talk about AI. Now we automate things for you, and that automation fits into AI, but it's artificial intelligence. When people ask, what is it? This is what it is. It takes the emails and it takes the communication and it does it for you and makes sure you're on the journey along the way, which means less work for you. So that's an interesting space as well. So Kylie, can you give us a couple of quick tips on what's coming down the pipeline that you're seeing in terms of disruption?
So look, I'm going to break it down into three really simple things. We saw at Inman in New York, and I'm sure we're going to see more of it, is around both vision, so the ability to extract data out of photographs and the importance of photographs, again, talking to the benefits, not the features of things, but being able to show people their brains, even, you know, according to the psychology of it, grasp a concept infinitely faster than either talking at them or making them read stuff. And I think in property management, this is really, really important, because typically property, you know, tenants get the absolute, you know, raw, I can only think of rude things to say, but they really get the raw, the bad end of the stick in terms of imagery around properties for rent. Like normally it's empty, you know, apartments, sort of bereft of any kind of personality or charm that you're expected to choose to live in. And also we share very infrequently any kind of data with our tenants. So the only data we really share with them is a note saying, look, your rent's just gone up. And that's regardless of whether they're, you know, all the rents have gone up because the whole suburb's risen. So I think it's all around both making, you know, showing people what is going on in their suburb in property management, making photos more attractive, extracting the data out of those photos, and then including data as part of your information that you're sharing with clients, so that they know that it's not just them, that actually, you know, things are happening, the context of what's happening around them. And then also around voice. So, you know, voice activation, Google Homes, and I know this is something close to your heart, Patrick, but and it's great to see you in this space, but the ability to ask for help rather than having to, and being to ask for help and get it immediately from a bot. And we're seeing that through Google Homes in a whole pile of other applications, and it's starting to come into real estate. And I think the work that you guys are doing is actually probably leading edge in that. I haven't seen anything overseas that equals it. In terms of practical application. But those two things, you know, imagery, being able to extract photos from imagery, being able to ask questions and having that information captured by a bot, all of that's talking to the kind of extraordinary capture of data and this data trail that we leave, you know, that goes everywhere with us now and that we're constantly adding to. And that's really escalating the speed and the accuracy and the way technology is starting to develop. So everything we're doing is now starting to both create data, capture data, suck data in faster, and then spit more out and become more and more customized. I mean, you know, the automation thing, even if you use Google, any of the G Suite products at the moment, you start to type an email, it knows before you know, you write, hi, Barney, you know, if I type an email to Barney McGrath and then I start to write hi, it fills in Barney for me, and it starts to recommend sentences that you're probably going to say. You know, it's been ages since Facebook ever asked us to tag anyone in a photo, because it knows. Netflix knows what we want to watch based not on what we actually read about any of the shows on it, but what we were kind of flicking through and the pictures we were looking at. And that's really going to start to change how we look.
Except for when my 10-year-old daughter gets onto my Netflix account and ruins it with, like, you know, High School Musical.
And it's like Spotify too. Like my son is a big punk music fan and keeps like hopping onto my account in the car. So it's like, oh no, like I can never listen.
My recommendations are all out.
Yeah, completely out. Yeah, Nath has the same issue with the Wiggles.
Yeah, and the shiny red car. I don't like it. Okay, so Barney, what would you recommend to the industry, and particularly in the property management space, knowing these disruptions, knowing what's out there? And knowing some of these pressures you talked about, like on their asset and offshoring and the distraction and all those kind of things you brought onto the table?
I think Kylie should run a 2-day workshop conference and write a business paper on all the technology that's out there. Get all the technology providers into one room, give them an hour on stage each, and then stand up the second day and debunk everything they've said and give some clarity to it. And I'm not joking. I think that is probably the fastest way forward.
I'd be keen to be involved in that, Kylie.
Another conference that I have to organise.
Oh, you're so good at it, though.
Good at it.
I'll put it on my list.
All right, good. How long's that list?
It's quite long at the moment, yeah.
Other than that, Barney, what would you advise?
Look, mate, I just think, you know, it's like how to eat an elephant, one piece at a time. I think, you know, there's no doubt there are industry leaders, there's early adopters, and there's the opinion leaders in the category. I think one by one, the larger and the more influential are going to pick up this technology, and it's going to force a wave of change.
Mm.
But it's like, it's hard for you guys because you're both on the cutting edge at all times, and you see a very long tail that's very slow to move. But as you both have seen in the past, once it gets momentum, it will be fast, and you'll be complaining that you are being overwhelmed. You know, it's interesting what you say about Bolt. You know, I've been talking to Scotty for the last 2 years, waiting for him to bring this technology forward, and it'll be amazing when he does. You know,
It's a very program.
Sorry?
It's a very sexy program. I've had a look at it.
Yeah, as have I, and I'm not sure when the final PM version is going to hit the street, but I think it might be September, October. Is that true?
I think that's for the broader market, but I think it's already out there now.
Yeah, no, I know it's in beta testing. And, you know, there's all the other things. I mean, you know, our property, terrifying for a lot of principals at the moment. Fair trading hasn't caught up. I mean, fair trading only just figured out what digital signatures look like. You know, so you're asking them to talk about giving up trust accounting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of barriers to this stuff that needs to be clarified and debunked. I mean, Pat and Kylie, you must be gone through this. I think our property looks great at a first blush. I don't know how well it's operating underneath the covers and how they're coping with the seemingly meteoric rise of interest. But I think there's, you know, still some real testing. You know, are the various fair trading departments in each state going to agree to this concept? You know, there's still so many reasons for principals to freeze frame and not jump in, and it gets. I think it's going to be slow adoption.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing around that, so we at the REI New South Wales, we had an event recently called Innovation versus Legislation, and or Legislation versus Innovation might have been a more accurate. And what we found, what came out of that was that there's probably only 5% of prop techs that are actually genuinely challenging legal status quo at the moment. So in New South Wales, the state of play is that you can't do anything around bonds. It's absolutely illegal. The legislation is very straightforward on that. However, trust accounts, if you don't hold money in trust, yeah, well then that's not covered, and you know you're kind of okay. And it is a grey area. You can't use digital signatures in the ACT. The ACT government doesn't agree with them in any way, shape, or form. So the issue around some of the issues around legislation are the fact that, you know, we're a country of federated legislation that affects residential real estate, and so it's different and difficult state by state. Yeah. However, 95% of prop techs are really just trying to operate inside existing frameworks and legislation and improve how agents are working their current processes. And according to Macquarie, you know, up to between 25 to about 55% of existing processes inside real estate agents could be significantly improved and made more efficient using existing technology that is out there right now. So yes, you need to make sure that you're not adopting something that is illegal, but the likelihood of that is pretty low on most of is low on most of these things, and it shouldn't be an excuse to avoid just, you know, improving your processes generally.
Look, in principle, I agree with you. However, you know, when you get, and I'm not picking a fight with anybody by any means, but when you look at the intent of fair trading legislation in relation to real estate agents and trust accounts, the simple fact is they're trying to protect the general public from any decisions that a principal or otherwise might make with their funds. Now, you can put a payment gateway between them, but at the end of the day, that same person is dictating the outcome of those same funds. I think it will be challenged. I truly do. I think the intent of the law is that if you are the principal dictating the movement of those funds for and on behalf of a client, you will be held accountable to report.
I think you might be right, but I think also that one of the challenges is that very few technologists want to kick off a challenge to a legal standpoint, even if they get lawyers that say, hey, you can do this, because they can't get funding. It's a long tail. It's a 5-year innovation cycle, according to the government representative that we had down there from the Department of Fair Trading. And technology is obsolete in 5 years. We're working off 12-month horizons at the maximum, and our sprints are 2 weeks long. So
Pat, like you and like the technologists and like me, no one wants to pick a fight with the legislators at any point in time.
No.
However, you guys have to acknowledge that until it's tested and approved, until somebody is the crash test dummy, and until you get a hearing or something from fair trading in each of the markets that says we understand and we agree and we accept this technology, there's a reticence to move.
Yeah, but the issue with that though, Barney, is that government won't do that. Government will not approve technology. They don't do that in any industry. They will not put a rubber stamp and say, yep, this is good to go. The whole structure of our legislative process is for things to be tested. I guess what we're seeing though is that some of the technologists are, getting smart around that. Our property is a great example. While managed app doesn't require anyone to have a trust account if you don't want one, our property has said, okay, we recognise this is a pain point for some of our clients, so we will have the real estate agent's licence, so that if fair trading want to come after anyone, they can come after us, because we are the one that is directing the money direct from tenant straight through to landlord. And so that's happening in our platform. So we recognise that we'll be the holders of the trust fund. But there's only one trust fund needed for the platform as a whole. Not every single agent needs a trust fund. And therefore, not every single real estate agent needs the bother or the hassle of reconciling trust funds. So there's even an improvement in a significant efficiency gain in that.
Mm-hmm. And I hope that's deemed as adequate.
Yeah. All right. Good questions. Look, we've run out of time now. Barney McGrath Consulting, thank you very much. Kylie Davies, thanks for joining us today on the Property Realm webinar series. And it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks very much.
Thanks guys. Lovely chatting.
Have a great day.